Hello, my name is Sandy Adomaitis, the social media director for the Page International Screenwriting Awards, and your host for the Writers Hangout, a podcast that celebrates the many stages of writing, from inspiration to the first draft, revising, getting a project made, and everything in between. We'll talk to the best and the brightest in the entertainment industry and create a space where you can hang out, learn from the pros, and have fun. There you are. I knew you wouldn't be late. Follow me. We're at the table you like in the back where it's quiet. Today, we have as our guest of honor Michael Hitchcock. From his critically acclaimed roles in film and television to his award-winning work as a writer and producer, Michael Hitchcock is a true Hollywood hyphenate. His writing and producing credits include Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, Glee, and Mad TV. Some of his film credits are House Arrest and Where the Day Takes You. As an actor, Michael is featured in Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar and Christopher Guest, Best in Show, Waiting for Guffman, and For Your Consideration. Let's get started. Michael Hitchcock, thanks so much for joining us on the Writers Hangout.
Well, thank you for having me, Sandy. This is fantastic.
Michael, back in the day, you were known for having the most fabulous Easter egg hunt party. Are you still having them? Have I dropped off the invitation list?
I'm sure everyone listening to your podcast really wants to know about that.
I literally saw an adult push a child, a toddler, to the side to get an egg.
I saw that too. I did. I've seen it. No, I'm not having them anymore. So rest assured, it's not that you weren't not invited. I gave that up a long time ago. I think it was too much work making all the macaroni salad.
Yes, and hiding the eggs. I'd like to start with your first film, the 1992's Where the Day Takes You. It was based on your experience working with runaways from the streets of LA. The cast was amazing. It stars Dermot Mulroney, Sean Astin, Balthazar Getty, Laura Flynn Boyle, Ricky Lake, Laura San Giacomo, David Arquette, who was so adorable in it, and Christian Slater, and Will Smith. When I recently rewatched the movie, and I found myself getting so attached to the kids. And you could tell through your writing how much respect you have for the kids and their circumstances. Do you remember how you felt creating those characters and why you chose whose story to tell?
I chose the characters because they were based, many of them, on people that I'd met or combinations of people that I met. I felt a lot about that particular issue at that time. It partly started weirdly. I went in to pitch a comedy for this at this company called Magnus Films at the time. They didn't buy the comedy, but they did say they were interested in doing something about runaway kids. And I said, well, I've had some experience teaching kids in prison, which I did do because when I was at UCLA grad school, a group of us did that. We taught reading and writing to kids that were locked up. That's how I got the overall opportunity to write the draft of Where the Day Takes You. Isn't that weird? And then once I got the green light to write it, I went out and every day went on the streets of Hollywood and talked to as many kids as I could. And I did my writing like in coffee shops and McDonald's or whatever in that neighborhood, so that I was in kind of the environment while writing.
Did the kids
got to know me. And it was fascinating because at the time I ran into a group that were pretty much protecting themselves by forming a little family. And many of them lived underneath a freeway overpass, which later got boarded up because there were homeless under there and they didn't like it anymore. So the city of LA boarded that up. And now, of course, we're having a real homeless problem again. But back then, the kids
it was mostly kids?
Well, no, there were a lot in that particular place. Yes, it was mostly a group of kids and a few adults too. But they kind of formed the family to protect themselves because they were, underage.
Yeah, it makes sense. But that was really the heart of the movie, the family.
And they were, which it can't be overstated enough, but runaways are not really runaways as much as they're throwaways. And so these are kids whose families have rejected them and kicked them out for many, many reasons. And almost 90% of them are, or whatever, I don't know the statistic, but they're not really choosing, this life in the streets. They were forcibly told to leave. So living on the street for them felt like a better option than staying at home.
For writing your first movie, there were a lot of characters. It's not easy to juggle that many characters, make sure their stories are told in a honest, truthful way, and lack of a better way to say it, that their stories get wrapped up. Did you find that hard at all for, your first script to write for so many characters?
Maybe because it was one of the first things I didn't think of it as like this horrible challenge. I think it was sort of an opportunity to tell different stories. Sometimes maybe it's just because I was so new at it, I didn't think like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I'm telling 10 people stories. But I did it kind of the way you would do it now, even like in a television, like writer's room or something, is you do, character A's story, character B's story, character C's story, and then start blending them together so that I knew sort of where everyone began and where they would end, and then how did they intermingle. And that's how it began. And then as far as that particular project went, at some point, Magnus Films sold the idea to a different film company, and they in turn brought in their own writer to rewrite me. And then at some point, director also claimed credit on the script as well. So there are three people credited on that script. So
Right.
maybe the parts you loved, I didn't write,
Oh no,
but you,
the parts I
the
loved were the
part.
part, and I know you wrote that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, the
Oh,
parts
you
that
know what
got
we could
added.
do?
But
We can have a whole podcast where we'll just go over the movie and you'll tell me what.
we'll guess. I'd have to get out all the drafts and look at each thing.
Yeah.
But the
Oh, which leads me
but
to, I'm curious because there were so many characters. How long was your first draft, your very first draft? How many
Oh,
pages?
honestly, I
Do
don't
you
know. I don't
remember?
remember. No, I'm sure it
Okay.
was at least 120 pages, but it wasn't like 170 or something. It was
Oh,
because you
okay. I
still have
was
to kind
wondering
of.
if well, not the draft that you handed in, but your draft, your what they call the vomit draft. I guess I was curious about.
Gosh, I don't know. That's a good question. This is back then. This was like pre like everyone having laptops and everything. So, yeah, that would be fascinating to
Yes.
dig through all of that stuff. I have the crate of those scripts somewhere. I'd have to go back and look through all of them to see
Yeah, that would be
what's going on.
interesting. I'm not going to, but I could talk about the movie forever. But one last kind of question on Where the Day Takes You. I felt that Laura Flynn Boyle's character, Heather, was
Hmm.
unusual for the time. She's not there just to hang off the arm of King, who is
Hmm.
the male lead of the movie, played by Dermot Mulrooney. Did you get any? Did the powers that be fight you on that?
No, I don't remember anybody fighting me on that. I think
Oh, good.
because that's really sort of the way it was. If you were a female on the street, and yes, there were hookups and love stories and all that, obviously with people who meet, but everybody was, for the most part at the very beginning, no one trusts anybody. So you're there by yourself, and then you'd form these little families to kind of, like I said before, protect each other. But yeah,
Protect,
everyone's
yeah.
very independent, including the females.
When you reflect back on that time, Michael, is there something you would have liked to have known then that you know now as a writer?
Well, back then, I mean, we could talk about this movie all day long. It was like the
Seriously.
best of times and the worst of times. The actual meeting the kids and working with the original production company was fantastic. When it got taken over, there were a lot of people I didn't know very well that got involved. And sort of the business of writing started happening, and it was a wake up call for me. And I wish way back then that was before I was in the Writers Guild, and I wish I had been in the Writers Guild because I think that would have helped solve some of the problems with credit and everything else. For
Oh,
example,
did you
like
go to
and I don't
arbitration?
yeah, and I don't want to talk a lot about all of that, but like the second writer, I've never met him in my life. I've never met him, and I learned
Hmm.
about him rewriting me by reading it in Variety while I had been talking to the director all over the place, and he just never bothered to tell me that someone
He
had rewritten
never
me.
bothered.
Never did. And then I rewrote the rewrite. And so it got very, it was a very strange process. That's
I
the business of show business.
It is the business of show business, and it's Where the Day Takes You, and it's on Amazon Prime right now. I think that's where I saw
Yeah,
it. So
yeah, it's on
please watch
Amazon.
that movie. Michael, as you know, you're a successful writer and actor. That's not an easy thing to accomplish. Do you prefer over the other? Do you like to write more? Do you like to act more? Is it just
I love both, and when I'm acting, I really like acting, but I miss writing, and it's kind of the same thing when I'm writing. Luckily, with writing, you can kind of do it anytime if you're doing something independently. So, I'm sitting around doing nothing as an actor, I could be writing. If I have a job, let's say writing where I'm, working on a staff or something like that, honestly, they don't love it if you say, "Hey, I want to go, leave for 3 weeks so I can go shoot something as an actor." That rarely
yeah,
happens. And you really have to pick your battles for that. So I sort of try to do the acting when I'm not, writing on a series or something like that. So that's sort of how it works, I guess. But I love them both. They're both fun, and I'm glad that I get to do both because you get to see both sides of all the brouhaha that's going on at any one time.
exactly. You directed an episode of Glee.
I
How was
did.
that? Do you like directing?
I like directing. It was extremely challenging. It was fun. I directed on the last season of Glee, and Glee. For those of you who have never seen it, it's had a lot of musical numbers in it, and so it had a lot of visuals going on. So it was challenging, but fun challenging. I think the biggest thing that I very quickly learned is you get almost absolutely no sleep when you're directing. And I by the time it was done, I was just running on fumes, just like pure caffeine. It was
I
that part
bet.
of it was eye opening. Like just you're just exhausted by the time it's over, and time flies. It's 7 a.m. and then all of a sudden it's 9 p.m. and you're like, where did all the time go? Because there's always a deadline, and you want to get a lot
Right.
done in a short amount of time.
I worked on in production on American Dreams, and that was about bandstand. So we had
Yeah.
musical acts. But every time I watched Glee, I was always just astounded just how much was poured into one episode. Acting, costumes. Those kids must have also been exhausted. Singing, acting, dancing.
They were.
It, it,
Yeah.
it was crazy how much was poured into one episode. You guys must
The
have all
the
been tired all the time.
well, the actors when they were, they'd have to rehearse the numbers. They'd have to go do the pre-records because all the music is pre-recorded, and then they lip sync to the things. So there's also people that are hired just to watch the lips to make sure that the cast are saying the right words at the right time. And the thing
Really?
that yeah, the thing that always tickled me about Glee and any musical show is because it's all about high school kids, and we're going to put on a show like the old Mickey, Rooney, Judy Garland movies, putting them on in the barn. And at the drop of the hat they'd have these full production numbers, and then in reality long it takes with the best of the best Hollywood crews and costumers and lighting and everything else, and the orchestrations and everything. It's always made
It's
me giggle
absolutely
every
wild.
time. Yeah.
Going back to the person who had to watch people's lips, the actors' lips,
Yeah.
were they popular? Did they have to go to the commissary alone? Did the
Oh no,
actors
they didn't
like that
watch the
too?
extras' lips. Is that what you said?
Oh, no, the
They
actors.
yeah, they were watching the sing. No, no, people liked them. It was just their job. So I'd
Yes,
have to
they
ask,
weren't
but
done.
but you would see like the lyric sheets, and every lyric sheet has color coding. So what actor is singing what part, and or whether it was a chorus part, and each one was a different color, and it was a lot of work. So
Wow, that's
um,
wild. My last question for you is starting out, what was your biggest misconception of what it means to be a working writer?
I think my biggest misconception is I think at the very beginning you think, well, I'm going to write something, I'm going to turn it in, and if they like it, they're going to film it. And what you quickly learn is that you're going to write it, and you're going to rewrite 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 it ad infinitum. It's like the never ending, text, like when you go to, like an English paper or something like that. It just doesn't end. And you're
Hmm.
getting notes from everybody. If it's a television show, you're at first getting notes, from the person who runs the show. They're called the showrunner or the executive producer. And then after that, the studio has notes. After that, the network has notes. And then it goes to a table read. And then after the table read, there's more notes. And it's always, always, always changing. And, it's not uncommon to have 12 drafts of any script at any time. So you have to
Wow.
enjoy the rewriting process, or at least tolerate it.
Yes, the life of a writer. Well, thank you for answering those questions, Michael. Would you join us in a pop quiz? Do
Do
a
I have
pop
a
quiz.
choice? Well, I hope it's not about like European history, because I'm not going to be very good at that.
I loved how I said, will you join us? There's no one else here but me, Michael.
All right,
Okay.
great. I'll
It's
try.
all based. Well, okay. Now, when you hear the title of the pop quiz, you'll get it. It's called "You Wrote the Show, but Do You Know the Show?"
Uh-oh.
Okay,
Probably the answer
and
is no.
we're basing this quiz on a episode you wrote for Glee called "What the World Needs Now." And I'm going to give you
Okay.
a softball. We start out with a softball just to give you some confidence. This is about the series in general. What are Glee fans called?
Gleeks.
Yes.
Oh
Feeling
boy, if I didn't
confident?
know that, I would have to go to Glee hell. All right.
Your episode of What the World Needs Now, what season and what episode?
I don't know what
What
episode it
number?
was. So that was Burt Bacharach. Trying to think who was in it. I think it was season 5. It might be season. Might be season. It's either 5 or 6.
I'm going to give that to you. It is episode 6, season 6. 6 6.
Okay, good.
You will
Yeah.
always remember that now. Do you remember who directed it? A woman.
Yes, Barbara Brown.
Yes. You're doing great. Okay. There is a first appearance of who in this episode? The first time these characters appear. Minor characters. Do you remember?
Wow. Let me think. I need a hint.
Brittany. Brittany is the hint.
Oh, is it Brittany's? Probably her mom or her
Yes, her
dad.
parent.
Yeah.
It said
Okay.
parents.
Yeah, Jennifer Coolidge and Dr.
Do,
Ken.
do you get character payments for those guys?
I honestly don't know how that works.
um,
You
if
would
you
think I would
create a
know that, but I
character,
don't know. I hope so.
you-
Yeah, you're supposed to
if you
get a
create,
payment. We get
yes,
these
if you
weird.
create a
Yeah,
brand new character in an episode and they reappear, you get money from the guild for creating them. Usually, showrunners
well,
like to have create the new characters, but you got lucky there.
right. But the way those you get these checks from wherever. In this case, it was Fox. It didn't really specify that, so I don't know if we did or we didn't. I hope
That's
we did.
okay. I'll come over and help you with your accounting, Michael.
Okay.
Okay, Mercedes, played by the wonderful, as you know, Amber Riley,
Uh-huh.
encourages Rachel, Leah Michelle's character, to do what in your episode?
At that point, Rachel was trying to figure out whether she should probably to go back to New York.
Follow her Broadway dreams. Going to give that to you. New York, Broadway, same thing.
Yes, because Rachel was back in Lima, Ohio at that point.
Absolutely. And you, I would say you have done the best of any writer who has taken any of these pop quizzes. And I have a bonus question that I don't think I needed, but I'm going to ask you anyways. You gave me 2 souvenir placemats a long time ago from what
Okay.
restaurant? Do you remember?
Wow.
I still have
Norms?
them. Denny's.
Well, Denny's. I love Denny's. It could be.
And
It
they
had to
had
be a
the
diner.
yes, and it has the Flintstones on them, and I still have
Well,
them.
we had improv classes back in the day near a Norms, so I thought it very well could have been a Norms.
Yeah,
But
you're right. It was near Norm's,
yeah,
La Cienega.
yes. But I love
Yeah.
Denny's, and I eat at Denny's like every week. So I'm just I go there
Shout
for I
out to
like to go.
Denny's.
Yeah, I go there for breakfast.
Yeah, actually, I haven't been to a Denny's in a long time, but I took my elderly neighbor to breakfast, and she wanted to go to Denny's. So, Michael, can you tell the audience where they can find you on socials? Would you like to share your socials?
Sure. You can find me on Instagram at Hitchmichael, HITCHMICHAEL. That's probably the best place to find me. I have a website, michaelhitchcock.com.
Are
But
you on Twitter?
yeah, I am on Twitter. I'm not on it that much anymore, just because it
Oh,
seems like
okay.
everybody just shouts on Twitter all day long.
Yeah,
But I am there, and it's at the same handle. It's at Hitchmichael. So yeah,
cool.
that's where you can find me.
Michael, you are absolutely one of my favorite people in the whole world, and I'm so glad we got to do this. Thank you so much
I
for taking the
I wish
time.
I could remember your name. Ah,
Thank you, Michael.
you're welcome. You're welcome, Sandy.
That's a wrap for the Writers Hangout. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, like, and thrive. Till we get to hang out again, keep writing. The world needs your stories. The Writers Hangout is sponsored by the Page International Screenwriting Awards. Executive producer, Kristin Overn. Producers, Terry Sampson and Sandy Adomaitis. Music by Ethan Stoller.